Hello, my name is Edward King, and I am making a non-video audio presentation here. And so the reason I make these presentations is so that you can go about your daily business, checking your emails or doing whatever you normally do on your PC while you listen to what I say. I do have a still picture up here, but for all intents and purposes, this is an audio presentation. And the picture that I have up here is a picture of a fragment of stone with what is believed to be ancient Hebrew. You can see that the writing, however faint, on this fragment is not nearly anything like what they're trying to pass off as being Hebrew today. No, this Hebrew is more akin to the sort of Hebrew Moses would have written in his language of the day. It is the real Hebrew. It is not the bastardized version, the Babylonian bastardization that they're calling Hebrew today. And it's certainly nothing like the written language that the people of Israel are using today. So beware and get educated and learn what real Hebrew is. This is real Hebrew. Okay, so I suppose I should begin with my presentation at the beginning in the book of Genesis. Chapter 1. So bear with me, beginning with verse 21. I'll read it here, and I'll just stop at verse 26. And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. And God said, Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. That's verse 26. Okay, you will notice, if you take out your Bible and read what I just read to you here, okay, if you read it carefully, you'll see that there is no reference to man, the Adam, and his kind. And of course, the reason for that is there is only one kind of human, the human kind. There are no other kinds of human. Read it carefully, because the purpose of this whole presentation is to make it very clear that there are no other kinds of human, okay? That we are all humankind. And though there are many variations in human genome, we are all human beings. And it's important to understand this, because even though we are living in the 21st century, there are many ignorant, uneducated people who actually believe that there are other races, I guess they like to use that word a lot. They're not human. Well, I have news for these people. We are all human, and we are all the same kind in the biblical sense of the word kind. And so I want to really elaborate on this because there is so much ignorance flying around today regarding humankind. And I'd like to clear up some of that, some of these very bigoted notions that because a certain genome, which they call race, happens to be different than another genome, which is also called a race, that they are not the same kind. Well, wrong. From a biblical standpoint, we are all the same kind. And that is why when an Asian person, for example, procreates with a member of a different genome, let's say a Caucasian and an Asian, they produce a child because they are the same kind. If they were not the same kind, they would not produce a child. Okay, this is very important. Or if they did produce a child, there would be some serious complications and that child would not be able to reproduce. Okay, it's like when they artificially cross a tiger with a lion and come up with this liger, the liger is sterile. It cannot carry on. It has no kind to carry on with, really. But even if they made a bunch of lagers, they would not be able to cross and produce more lagers. Okay, that's because a tiger and a lion are not the same kind. Even though they're both cats, they are not the same kind. Not so with humankind. And I really want to stress this, all right? A native, indigenous, aboriginal person can join with an Australian aboriginal person and produce offspring, even though they're so different from one another, even in their genomes. In fact, the Australian aborigine is the most apart, I guess you could say, of all human beings. They have a very unique blood type, and they are a very unique group. But really, they're still humankind because they can cross and they can still make offspring. And those offspring can join to offspring just like them and still produce human babies. All right? So this is really important to understand that we are all the same species. So I would like to address this, I guess, scientifically, because I've frequented scientific circles, and I've done a little bit of learning in this, and I know people who are very deeply immersed in biology and understand biology. And what I'm really giving you here is like biology 101. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. Okay. What has been dubbed in layman's terms as a race is not entirely accurate. Okay. But if you want to get very technical about it, we are all the human race. And there are variations in a species, okay? Variations, all right? We are all the same kind, but there are many variations. Now, I'll make it simple because variations occur all the way throughout the whole gene pool of all living, breathing creatures, even insects, for example. Let's look at the butterfly, for example. Let's look at a particular species of butterfly. Papilio retulus is a type of swallowtail butterfly. Normally, it is a light-colored pale yellow with black bands running down the center. But it has a darker variation, Papilio retulus or Papilio turnus negro. Oh, there, I said the Negro word. I sure hope I didn't offend anybody by saying the Negro word. But I would like to point out that Negro is not a condescending or derogatory term, but people have attached this nonsensical stigma to it and made it thus. And that's ridiculous, because if that's the case, I should get upset and really offended if anybody refers to me as being Caucasian, because I'm a light-skinned man. I'm not a white man. I am a light-skinned man. There are no white people in the world, and there are also no black people in the world. I talked to one person who did a lot of biology, and they explained to me the various sorts of melanin. I didn't realize that there were various kinds of melanin and that people had, and that none of these by themselves were truly black. The stuff that has been dubbed black melanin is actually a dark purplish color. It's not really a true black. And guess what? There is nobody who has true white pigment, because there is no true white pigment in people. It doesn't exist. All right? There's just the absence of certain types of melanin and the presence of other types of melanin. For example, people with red hair have a type of melanin in their hair that makes their hair red. All right? Does that mean that they're not human? No. Okay? So Negro people, and by the way, here's what the social engineers have really messed us up with, even in our dictionaries. The Negro people, okay, Negro, that word, that term, is not the slang word that so many people are throwing around today. That's a derogatory term, and it shouldn't be, well, I will not bother to utter it in this presentation, okay? But it actually originally from the Latin didn't mean black, okay? But dictionaries are saying that it does, because that's what they want. They want to create, the social engineers want to create division. The actual term, I can't remember exactly what the Latin called it, but it meant dark, and it was used for anything that was darker. Hence, that tradition was passed on in Latin scientific terms for anything that was darker. It was called negro. It was darker colored. Okay, it was not literally black. Okay, and it was used that way. Even, I guess, back to Roman times. Okay, it meant darker. That's all it meant. It just meant darker. Okay, people? All right? So, I have never met a black person in my life, even though this term has been programmed and conditioned and stuck in people's heads. But back to Negro, okay? The greatest Negro leaders in the world, okay? I'm talking, people like Martin Luther King, Farrakhan, okay? They use the term Negro. And they don't use it to be condescending or derogatory. They use that word with pride. And they ought to. There's nothing to be ashamed of there. It is not a derogatory term. It is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. The slang term, boy, that'd be fighting words for me. Okay, But I'm not talking about the slang term. I am talking about the proper, educated, scientific term. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And if there is, boy, I should really be offended when somebody refers to me as being Caucasian. And I imagine Asian men should get really offended when they're referred to as being Asian. It's foolishness, people. It's foolishness, all right? But this nonsense was generated by social engineers so that people of different genomes would be constantly at each other's throats. Having said that, Papilio turnus negro was a darker type of Papilio turnus. Okay, Papilio rotulus negro was a darker form of Papilio rotulus. They're both swallowtails, by the way. They're almost looking identical. But anyway, all right, they were variations on a species. And that's what we are. We are variations on the same species. That means we're the same kind. but there are variations in our kind, and thank God for that. If you would, try to picture a forest where every tree is exactly the same height, and all the leaves are all shaped the same way, and every tree in that forest is the same species. What do you suppose the chance of that forest surviving will be if it should ever come into contact with an outside world, or ever come into contact with some other microbe that it has no defense against? That's right. All those trees will die. And why will they die? Because there's no genetic diversity. I'm talking real basic biology 101, people. You have to have genetic diversity. Okay? It is really essential to the survival of any, drum roll here, species. Now, we are all the same species, but there are variations in the species, and thank God that there are. I have nothing against a person for wanting to preserve their particular variation in their genome. I think that is commendable. I just hope that they understand that in their efforts to preserve their genome, by the time it reaches the third generation, they had better be prepared to start introducing some different genetic material, and pronto, because this is precisely the sort of thing that happened to royalty. And look where royalty are now. These people are half insane. And that's what happens when you do that. When you get too much inbreeding, you start going cuckoo. You start going crazy. And can you imagine royalty, the English royalty, they're on the verge of insanity. Seriously, I'm not joking, because of too much inbreeding. And this is what happens when you get into the whole purebred mentality, the purebredization mentality. So if you want to preserve your genome, that's fine, but understand that at some point, different genetic material needs to be introduced, or you're going to lose your mind, and your offspring are going to become sterile. That said, on the other hand, we look at the hybrids. Now, what is a hybrid? A hybrid is basically mixed breed. The offspring of miscegenation. Praise God and thank you, Jesus, for miscegenation, because that's what keeps this world ticking. Okay, miscegenation is when these two different genomes combine to produce another variation. And I think hybridization is an awesome way to go. And so I salute the people who actually embrace miscegenation, because they're doing their part to preserve the human race. Now, right there, I've used the term race correctly, because race refers to species, and we are all one species. Okay? You need both. Okay, it is very important. In order to preserve a gene pool, you should have both, so that when one starts to flounder, the other can pick it up. And when the other starts to flounder, then the other can pick it up. And this is what keeps the whole system running. Now, if you don't believe me, you need to look into history. You need to look at things, genetic markers. I don't have a lot of time to get into all of this, like when the Black Plague swept through England, the people who survived were the ones that had the right genetic markers so that they could develop the antibodies to survive the Black Plague, for example. Okay? Somewhere in that person's background, maybe their great-great-great-great-great-granddaddy got into a little bit of miscegenation, and just happened to acquire some markers that resulted in a immunity that the great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren inherited. But seriously, I don't have to spend a lot of time on this for people to understand that if you devote yourself dogmatically to pubertization, you are a recipe for disaster, because this really limits your genome, and sooner or later your great-great-grandchildren are going to run into some real serious problems, health problems. It's one reason why King Henry VIII could not get a healthy heir to the throne, because of all this cousins marrying cousins nonsense. And I suppose that's why KKK are so ignorant. They're so, I mean, for the most part, and I don't mean this derogatory or condescendingly, it's just they're just so dumb, they're just so stupid. Okay, and no, they're not the only ones. I'm seeing the same kind of nonsense happen in all sorts of genomes. They're just so uneducated. An example of that would be Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali. What an uneducated man. He's talking about how, well, because eagles don't mate with vultures, well, duh, they're not the same kind. They're two different species. Of course eagles don't mate with vultures. But human beings are all the same species. That means they're the same kind. So there goes the analogy. But then Muhammad Ali was not a very educated man. So his analogy fell apart right away. Of course bluebirds don't mate with eagles. They are two different species. They're not the same kind. They cannot produce offspring. Guess what? All humans can mate and produce offspring. Oh, big difference there, isn't there? That's because all humans are the same kind. I'm exasperated because I'm dealing with so much ignorance. I cannot believe that we are in the 21st century and yet we still have not had this figured out. There is no pure black melanin, folks. There is no pure white melanin. It doesn't exist. These pigments don't exist. All right? But combinations of them can produce appearances where someone appears to be lighter skinned than another person. All right? Or redder skinned. That's a type of melanin that produces that red glow, by the way, than another person. Or maybe a bit even appear to be black, but not really black. When you get right down to it, no, it's a dark purplish pigment. Okay, but of course it's conveniently labeled black, but it really is not. There are no black people in the world. I'm just telling you the truth. There are no black people in the world. There are no white people in the world. There's no white pigment, that matches a black pigment. You know what I mean? It doesn't exist. All right. Brown exists. It actually exists. There are brown-skinned people. Okay. And they may not necessarily be Negro. All right, there, I used that word again. And I don't mean it condescendingly. I mean it respectfully, as anyone who uses the word Caucasian. It is still the same scientific terminology. And, if people are going to start glorying in the flesh to the extent that their confidence is actually being placed in that kind of format, genetic format, they're setting themselves up for ignorance, because we all live, we all die, we all have something that we can offer, and we all have our own genetic weaknesses, okay? Not just within genomes, not just within certain ethnic groups, but just as individuals. And so I'm really hoping that I can reach some people with this, especially the Bible thumpers. I'm a Bible thumper. That's fine. I'll thump some Bibles with you here. But, there's none of this business where God is forbidding in terms of the word kind, as though there were different kinds of human beings in this respect that we read here in Genesis, okay? Because we're talking about genetics. Genetically, we are all the same kind. We are all the same species. And, I think, biblically speaking, one of the best arguments ever made was, I believe it's in Numbers 12, when Moses married an Ethiopian woman, a dark-skinned woman. And God decided to show Moses' jealous, light-skinned sister what it really meant to be white, leprous. So keep that in mind. The Lord God said, "My servant is not so." And, Miriam was trying to get people to think that Moses was some old pervert. And, women are always it's all about sex. That's the only reason he's interested. It's all about sex. Women are like that, I noticed. Not all women. I'm not that stupid. But I could just see it. I could just see her standing there going, "Oh, the only reason he's interested in her is it's about sex." That's, because Moses did have more than one wife, by the way. That is very well verified. So, Miriam was jealous. And not only that, but he marries outside his, kind? No, he didn't marry outside his kind. But it's true that he did not marry someone who was, maybe his particular genome, his variation, So the word kind is a very general term. It could probably be used that way, but it isn't very accurate. We are all humankind, folks, all of us. I don't have a thing against miscegenation because I understand that miscegenation is largely responsible for the survival of the human race. Oh, I used the word correctly that time. And I'll keep using it that way. The human race. And I don't have anything against those who choose to maintain their genome, except, when they're being ignorant and stupid and get all supremacist about it, all proud and of their flesh, which is going to rot off their bones anyway, and, and just like anyone else, they will die. So be careful. Be careful. Because I think the time has come to redefine race. And I think we should redefine it in terms of the human race. Because that is what we all are. And the sooner we come to understanding this, the more scientific and more accurate we will be. But if we're going to embrace stupidity and be like the KKK, very uneducated, very ignorant, well, you know what? I don't even want to be part of that, It makes me ashamed to even be a member of the human race when I see people embracing so much stupidity and so much ignorance. Anyway, thank you for listening to part 1 of this presentation. I have so much to say about this, because not only do I talk the talk, but brother, I have walked the walk, and I definitely know from whence I speak. So God bless you. with this message. And think about what I say. And be prepared to ask questions, because I will answer them. I know from whence I speak. We are all the same kind. And it is not a sin to mix genomes, to hybridize. In fact, it's a service to humanity. So God bless you. God bless you, and thank you for listening.